Ooh, we're on. At this time, I'd like to call the January the 24th, 2022 meeting of the Board of County Commissioners to order. I'm going to have the invocation, and then if you'd remain standing for the pledge. Thank you. Bow your heads. Dear Heavenly Father, as we come to you today, we'd like to thank you for all your many blessings, Lord. We'd like to thank you for allowing us to be here today, to have this meeting, to be able to do the business for the county, and we ask for your wisdom, your mercy, your grace as we do this business and have this meeting. We ask for travel mercies on the way home today, and it's in your name that we pray. Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, at this time, the approval of the agenda. Are there any additions or corrections to the agenda?
Make a motion we approve as is.
All those in favor?
Aye.
And public comments, which there's no one signed up for public comments today, so I'll close that. Then we have the comments from the commissioners and manager. Start with Commissioner Morris.
Thanks, Madam Chairman. Just like to welcome everybody, either online or the few folks we have here in the room, to our meeting today. Thanks for being here. Thanks for your interest in what we're doing. That's all I have, Madam Chair.
All right.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. As well, it's good to see everybody here. I hope you find your time useful here and have safe travels back home.
Wow, those are two short ones. I was just thinking in my mind what I was going to say. As usual, I want to thank everybody for coming out. I tell you, this last week with the weather, you can still go sledding in the back of my yard. I don't think that ice is ever going away. So that's on my prayer list, that I see it's going to be 58 degrees tomorrow, and then turn right around and get down to 18 on Wednesday. I'm not a weatherman. I sure hope Van Denton gets it right one time and gets up 58 degrees. But thank y'all for coming out today, sincerely. It's always appreciated. We like to see what's going on in the community. We like to get comments, and it means a lot. And for everybody that's watching us on YouTube live streaming today, I just want to say thank you for watching this meeting and having interest in what's going on in county government. And I believe that's all I've got, Madam Chair.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Barney-Castle.
Yeah, it's great to see everybody. Everybody's watching live stream. It's good to see everybody showing interest in local government. Just stay warm.
All right, and I'd like to thank everybody for being here today, taking time out at 2 o'clock on a Monday to come to our meeting or to watch our meeting. And I'm kind of over the weather, the cold weather myself. I'm ready for spring myself, but we may be in for another weekend of it, unfortunately. But I appreciate the job that Ms. Shaver did over the bad weather, making those calls, the weather calls and everything. That's a lot of responsibility to make sure all of our employees are safe and we don't take any chances with anybody. So I appreciate that, and that's all I have. Turn it over to you.
Welcome to everybody here. It's nice to see everybody here today. I would like to ask everybody to keep one of our employees, Randy Steele, and his family in your thoughts and prayers. Randy lost his wife, Angie, last Thursday. She was just 47 years old, and we're actually having her funeral service today during this meeting. So just keep him in your prayers, as that's going to be a hard time for Randy and his family coming up. So thank you.
All right, that takes us to the conflict of interest statement. And before I read it, do you want to have comments about it? Or
Actually, about the thing that's in the consent agenda.
Consent, okay.
Yeah,
I thought
I'll follow you with
okay,
that.
I got you. So before moving any further, does any board member have a conflict of interest with any of the items on the agenda for this afternoon, or one that could be perceived as a conflict of interest?
No.
Okay, all right. Then we'll move on to the consent agenda. And Commissioner Morris, what was your...
Yeah, I just have some questions on the conflict of interest policy. Ty really needs to hear this too, so I'm going to ask him to do something. But when he gets back,
This policy is in place so we can execute the funds from this grant, and it needs to be approved today. I talked to Shannon about that earlier, and I don't have any problem with us approving it today, but it's, I had a few questions on it about whether it may be needed at some point, some clarification and so forth. First of all, my first question was, I guess this will become our new conflict of interest policy for everything, right? Okay. Because I don't think we have one like this specific in place right
We have
now.
the gifts and favors policy in the personnel handbook that doesn't anywhere near in depth this, and then you all have just like in your rules of procedure, you don't have a defined conflict of interest
Yeah.
either. So,
Well, this one's very comprehensive, and I personally like the wording. I think the language in it, I don't really see a major problem with it, but it did cause me a few questions. And my first one, I'd like to figure out if whether the people in the sheriff's department fall under it or not, because they operate under a set of different personnel rules and authorities and so forth. And so, it's talking about commissioners being related to staff members, commissioners related to other commissioners. We had one time 2 brothers serving. It refers up here to, in the very beginning, it's talking about private interest and official responsibilities of a person in a position of trust. And so I'm not sure exactly what the definition of that means or doesn't mean. Like, for instance, the sheriff would be in a position of trust, but this whole thing seems to be geared toward commissioners. So I'd like to definitely clarify if it impacts the sheriff, or if he needs to be aware of what it says and would like to make any changes to it in the future. I think.
I answered you earlier and said that yes, it'd be nice if it was approved today. I think the only thing that it's going to do is delay us receiving that state directive grant funding.
Mm-hmm.
This is part of the template that they sent over with this and that tax debt statement that we have to upload to them to be able to receive our funds. The funds are going to be available starting the end of the month. So it would just delay that. So it wouldn't like we wouldn't get the funds. It would just delay them coming. So if we needed a little more time to kind of hash some of those things out, we can certainly do that if that's going to rush us too much to do it today.
Okay, well, I don't have a problem with approving it today or holding it over, either one, but I think we'd want to at least look at it and clarify these things. Like, I think when Mike Joyce was sheriff, his brother was a full-time deputy, and all those kind of things are what triggered my thought process to about the way it refers to things. It also says in one place it says if you're related to a staff member, and then in another place down in the bottom it's talking about your immediate family. So is a staff member. So down toward the bottom there somewhere. And then I was curious about, if we adopt this, I was kind of curious exactly what the department head should be told to do with it, or how they would play in the process. It also has like in section E, down there about, it refers to, in the last sentence, expenses incurred is provided in the bylaws and board policy. But I'm not sure what bylaws and board policy it's talking about there. And that may need some clarification. So, and then number H, if you read it, it says a commissioner or staff member engages in activities that may cause a loss of public credibility in County of Stokes or create a public impression of impropriety. Well, that seems very subjective to me, and so I wouldn't mind Ty taking a look at that. And then the last thing, it's got this recurring requirement that you send us an email once a year. So it'd probably be good to kind of define that a little bit better. Are you going to send us one next week to get it started, or are you going to wait a year and send one, or whatever? So.
And this is just the basic guideline from OSBM. So I would say we can change things. The only thing that could happen is if we upload it and they don't think it's enough, they might come back to us and say that conflict of interest is not enough for us to consider that a conflict of interest policy. So we could tweak it if we wanted to, and then just see what we get from there when we send it into them.
Okay. Well, I'm good sending it in just like it is for now, but I just wanted to present these thoughts so the rest of the board could, and Ty could take a look at it and see if it needs might need further clarification so we don't confuse people and so that we can execute it properly with your recurring annual email and all that stuff. So that was my only concern.
Is that?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
may I have a minute?
Yes, go ahead.
As I looked over this also, I would say 95% of this conflict of interest. Every board that I'm on, I have to sign a conflict of interest. And then as the meeting progresses, if an action item comes up where I have a conflict, I have to recuse myself. As I look at this here, I will say this. Some of this, 95% of this is very objective and very easy to take care of. A commissioner is related to another commissioner. Hey, you know if you're related to another commissioner. I don't see anybody else here I'm related to. A commissioner is related to a staff member. I'm not related to a staff member. But I do go down and I'm going to say on H also. H was very, H created a lot of doubt in my mind of how we are going to enforce that the way it is right now. Because you cannot tell me that's an objective, that is not an objective relation. When it says a commissioner or staff member engages in activities that may cause a loss of public credibility in the county of Stokes or create a public impression of impropriety. Now, Madam Chair, who's going to determine who is going to determine that it may cause a loss of public credibility? First of all, is it the 5 commissioners? Is it our attorney? Is it some of our community members? Some of our community members might think that something a commissioner does causes a loss of credibility, and then some of the others may not think that.
Yeah, it's
So
very
to me, that is one of the most subjective conflict of interest statements, and I'm on the Board of Trustees for SciTech. We have nothing even close to that. Everything is just spelled out to a T on ours. I just don't see how are we going to, and I look at our attorney. Mr. Browder, could you really, how are we going to make a determination on H?
Totally subjective.
Yeah.
I think we could remove H. I don't think that's going to be a big issue when we submit that, if that's not part of this policy. I mean, if we just remove that line entirely. And the OSBM office can let me know if they feel differently.
Well,
if I submit it.
I'm telling you up front now.
Yeah, I agree.
Something could happen
Yeah.
with a commissioner, any of the 5, and then you bring it to the board, and 2 of the board members might think it is a loss of public credibility, and the others may think it wasn't. So what's our determination factor on this? Sorry, I didn't mean to take up too much of your time.
So do you want to bring it back next time and let Ty read over it and see if you have any other suggestions, or do you have any other that you know of now, or?
Well, I agree with Commissioner Mendenhall.
Yeah,
How you
we could remove
determine
that.
that, because what might cause a loss of credibility with one person might not with the next. So you just don't know. It's just very subjective. It needs some kind of objective standard, I think, in order to be enforceable. That's fine. I have not seen this before and had a chance to review it, but I'll be glad to review it and
Okay,
come back with recommendations.
all right, well, do you want to remove that from consent?
You want to move it to consent to action for next time, and then we can hopefully get it worked out a little. Maybe I could ask a question by then too to the OSBM office and just see if, since they sent that template, if we remove that, if that's going to be an issue.
Right, find out, and then that'll give Ty a chance to
Okay.
look over it.
We don't meet again until February 14th.
And this pertains to not only the commissioners, but all employees.
Yeah, and it's an
Maybe
ARPA
Find out about the
requirement.
sheriff too, be sure.
Yeah.
We'll find out about that, but we're gonna have a lot of policies that we don't currently have in place for ARPA funds. This is specifically part of the state directive grant money, which a lot of that's ARPA funded too. So they're already requiring you to upload all those things. So there's gonna be several of these that are, Julia has to do a separate finance policy on some things. There's a lot of,
Got a whole list.
a whole list of, they've just sent these out recently and wanted these now, so.
One other thing, if you would just check too, is talking about whether you're kin to somebody or not. Well, I have 4 first cousins here in the county. They have kids, and some of them have kids. And some of them could be working for the county. I wouldn't have any idea. So if we could just clarify what we're talking about when we're saying you're
We
kin
have
to
something in our
somebody.
personnel policy that addresses that and says we'll try to not do that, but in a small rural area, that's hard sometimes. And it addresses that of just, making sure you know that when somebody's hired, but you can't always prevent that, so.
Okay.
Okay.
With that, I make a motion, we approve the consent agenda with taking out the conflict of interest policy.
Second.
We're taking out the
Taking out the
SCIF grant statements, just take
Yes.
that whole item out.
Yeah, because if I'm not gonna submit this one, I can wait and submit that, that tax debt one next time too. It's fine, we'll just put it all back together.
Okay.
second that.
All right, all in favor? Aye. Next item is our information agenda, and the first item is Leslie Bray Brewer, who will present the Walnut Cove Wellness Center. Thank you.
Thank you. How's this? Can you hear me like this?
Yeah.
Mike
I'll
on?
let me know.
Mike
Thank you
on?
so much for letting me come. I know you got a lot on the agenda. I usually shoot from the hip, but sometimes when I do that, I go down rabbit trails, so I'm going to
Tap it, Mike, see if
recap it. Maybe it's not on.
There you go, now try it.
Testing? How about now?
Can you hear?
I mean, I can talk. I can really project if I don't talk into it. What do you want me to do?
We can hear you good, we're just making sure that the live feed can hear you as
My
well.
mama might be watching. Yeah.
Down here, I promise. I'll leave it up.
Come on, Leslie.
I think we're good now.
All right, how about now?
There we go.
What? Okay. Thank you so much. Again, I apologize that I'm going to read a lot of this just because I don't want to miss anything and I don't want to take too much time. Most of y'all know me already. You know me from my time at the Stokes News when I was editor, and I spent a lot of years in this very room. Believe it or not, this is the part I miss the most, and that's not a lie. I miss covering y'all's meetings. But I resigned to become the director of a nonprofit. And that's what I'm here to talk to you about today, a project that our nonprofit has taken on. And I think it's time you knew about it in case you've not seen it on my Facebook page. I grew up in Walnut Cove from birth to age 18. That's where I lived. Back then, there was nothing much for kids to do. There were no playgrounds, no parks, no community centers, no places for youth to gather. Unfortunately, that got a lot of us in a lot of trouble. There was nowhere to go. As a teenager, truthfully, all I wanted to do was get out of that town. My wish was granted. I escaped for 13 years before returning to Walnut Cove. Why did I come back? Because I felt I was supposed to. There was something I was supposed to do. At first, I wasn't really happy, but God did a miracle. I fell head over heels in love with Walnut Cove, and I vowed at that point that I would take the rest of my life to pray for Walnut Cove, to pray for Stokes County, to do good things here, and that's what I want to do. I've raised 5 kids in Walnut Cove and Danbury, now where I live. I started a prayer group in 1999 to pray for revival and change in Walnut Cove and Stokes County. We continue that group today. Over these 23 years, I've seen my hometown blossom in ways I never could have imagined in my childhood. Wonderful things are going on in Walnut Cove. Here's the problem. One thing hasn't changed. We still don't have anywhere for youth in Walnut Cove to hang out. There's not a playground with a bathroom. There's a porta-john at one, but I'm talking about kids can't go anywhere to really play where there are accommodations for them. There's no park with bathrooms. There's no community center. I have no problem with going to King to the Y, but that's a long drive for people in Walnut Cove or Pine Hall even. For years, I wrote about this issue periodically in my newspaper column, The Old Paths. I kept begging some rich person to come forward, donate land, build this community center for the eastern part of our county, and nobody volunteered. So finally, I realized it's going to take just a grassroots effort to get this, and that's what we began to do. So in 2011, I started this nonprofit nonprofit and left the Stokes News. It's called Times of Refreshing on the Old Paths. By 2012, we were a 501c3, and we had been given Lois Dodson Smith's historic old house in Walnut Cove on 2nd Street as our headquarters. Right now, we call it The Well. Right beside of us was the old Dodson Hotel. Had been built in 1912 by Lois's father. In 2013, it was torn down, and suddenly people started coming to me, unrelated to each other, saying, "You're supposed to have that land for something." I didn't listen to them at first, but after a while, it became too much to ignore, and I realized this is where we could build the Health and Wellness Community Center. So in 2016, when El Cabo bid on that lot, I nearly panicked because we didn't have any money, and they had just bid $30,000. We had $18,000 saved up. But on pure faith, we made a bid of $32,000, and El Cabo backed off. They're thrilled they did because they have a wonderful place now. However, a local businessman began to bid against us, and for 6 months we were in a fierce bidding war. We finally won with a $50,000 bid. We did not have that money at the time. I had 2 months before closing, and I just began to advertise on Facebook. Not a single fundraiser, nothing was sold. As a friend of mine said, not a single chicken had to die. We just simply put it on Facebook that we want to build something in Walnut Cove. People sent money. Walnut Cove, King, Stokes County. We got more money from King than anywhere. Money came from all over the county. Money came from the state. San Diego, California, Florida. Money starts coming in saying, build something in Walnut Cove for those kids. That's why I'm here before you today to say, I know this is the right thing. This is the plan of God, I personally believe. We had the vacant lot surveyed. A site plan has been drawn up, and if I'm not mistaken, do they have a mini version of that site plan in their packet? You also have a vision statement, which is not exactly what I'm reading today, and you also have a timeline of how things have gone. With that site plan, I was told by the Walnut Cove Planning and Zoning Board, I began to meet with them. They said, start looking at an architect. We've met with several. Prices, of course, were exorbitant. So I began to reach out to local universities that had architectural programs to say, we want to build something for our youth. How about your college students helping us design this? And, of course, no doubt about it, I thought it would be cheaper. For about 2 years, nothing worked out with that. However, just a few weeks ago, Dr. Travis Hicks, who is an associate professor at UNCG, a licensed architect, director of the Center for Community Engaged Design, and the director of the North Carolina Main Street program, replied to my plea for help. He said that our project was exactly what his program does. They're already tied up for the next few months, but he said if we could wait a few months, he thinks, now there's no commitment here yet, but he thinks this is something that they could help us do. If that's the case, cost would be minimal. As for money to build this facility, I'm not here today begging for money because I believe money's coming in. If you have an idea of how we can find money, you let me know. I would welcome that. We're praying for that to be provided. I know there are USDA grants out there. If I'm not mistaken, when you all were wanting to build a community center in the Meadows area, I think maybe Commissioner Walker was checking on a USDA grant. I've seen some of those online. I'm already looking into that. No one at our nonprofit takes a salary. It's all voluntary. So all of the money that comes in, other than what we tithe out to help the less fortunate, goes into a fund for this. So we've already saved up enough money, I believe, for architectural plans should the university plan not work out. We want to build a beautiful multi-purpose building. Entrances from Main Street, Walnut Cove, as well as an entrance on 2nd Street. The main space would be a large multi-purpose room with retractable basketball goals at each end that kids could come in after school, recreational opportunities. There would be an elevated walking track, like at the Y, around the top of that. That room could also be used. We would have chairs to put out for community events. Concerts, there's going to be a stage at one end. We have the Palmetto in Walnut Cove, but this is a little different. We're talking about bringing youth in regularly here. Behind this large multi-purpose room, you're going to have an annex. It's going to be a 2-story area with classrooms. You're talking about meeting spaces, classrooms for education, dance and music instruction, health and wellness classes, counseling, other wonderful things like that. We also want a big kitchen because we want to help First Baptist Church and other churches do some soup kitchens periodically in town. I've also even talked to a physician who's interested in coming there once we get it built to do monthly free health clinics for the community. If possible, we'd like to have a basement area where adults and kids and everybody could come in and have wholesome recreation. Ping pong, pool tables, foosball, things like that. young people could come to this facility after school for tutoring, recreation, music and dance lessons, and more, all for free. How do I know that? Because volunteers have been coming to me saying, I teach piano lessons. I want to do it for free for kids that can't afford it anywhere else. I teach dance. I want to do it. Volunteers coming in already. Summertime would give even more opportunities when kids have nowhere to go. But we wouldn't leave out everybody else, including the elderly. An elderly man in Walnut Cove spoke at a Walnut Cove town meeting and said, I have had a stroke, and when I want to go walk indoors or swim, I have to drive all the way to King. He loves the Y there, but he said, I wish we had something here. He asked me, can we build a full-size pool? There's not room. But a lap pool is a possibility. Angie Bailey, the director at Walnut Ridge Assisted Living, spoke at the Walnut Cove town meeting and said, we want this health and wellness center, because right now they have to load up a lot of their elderly citizens and drive them to King a few times a week. She said, we need something here. As we would like to have a couple of annexes, we actually want a little room annexed to it, small, 24/7 prayer chapel. Anybody who wants to come in, and we've got safety features already planned in for that. We want another small annex, just a room as a visitor center. When people come through Walnut Cove and they want to go to Hanging Rock, Maratock, wherever, where they know there's a sign, they can stop in, get the brochures for the whole county. We want to offer all this for free. I know that sounds crazy, but I believe with grant funding, I've talked to Terry Fowler. She is the boss of one of my children. My child works for her. And she's already said grants are out there, Leslie. So we want grants to run this or a donation-only basis. I've already had preachers and all kinds of people in Walnut Cove say, we will come help volunteer to staff this. There's nowhere in the eastern part of Stokes County for people to go that has the broad scope of the YMCA type activities that we're planning to offer. We would serve not only Walnut Cove, we're talking Pine Hall, Germantown if they're closer to us than King, Meadows, but people from everywhere would be welcome. Now, here's what I'm thinking. With the COVID situation, this is even more needed because so many people in Walnut Cove, I have friends and family who have been affected, and some of them have long-term effects from this. We need a place to teach people about health and wellness, and if something worse than COVID, God forbid, is coming down the pike, let's have a place that people can come to be healthy and learn about health and wellness and have wholesome recreation. I could say a whole lot more about this, but I'm passionate about it. As I told the people in Walnut Cove at the board meeting 2 weeks ago, I'm a middle-aged woman. I'm almost done raising 5 kids. Got one in a neon coat right there left behind here. But I'm almost done, but I've loved it. I can sit at home now. I got a husband that says, sit at home, write your books, eat chocolate. I'm supposed to do this. So I've come to you to say, this is what I feel I'm supposed to do. I have support behind me. I ask for your support. And if you have any ideas or suggestions, I welcome them. I'm done. Thank you.
Thank
You're
you.
doing 10 minutes. That's right.
I'll see if the board members have any comments or questions.
I do. Leslie, good to see you. I admire you for taking on this challenge. I know it could be very stressful and take up a lot of your time and drive you crazy sometimes, but I can say as far as my end, I support you 100%. If there's anything I can do to help you out personally, I'm open to you.
Thank you.
I do, a man who's very aware of grants and stuff in this county, Mr. Eddie McGee down here. I don't know if you've spoken to
He's
him
my
yet.
cousin. We're good, but we're like,
Oh, okay, yeah, family then.
is that a conflict of interest? I'm Ken. I'm just kidding.
But definitely any information that you got on it, please give it to me, and I'll also take it to our state reps as well, just to see how far we can go with this to get something going on it.
Yes, thank
But definitely put it in God's hands, and looks like he's already opened some doors for it to happen, so I believe it's going to happen. I like seeing that prayer guard in there too.
Yes.
So catching our youth early on believing in faith and believing in God's
Absolutely.
very high priority, especially nowadays.
Thank you, sir.
So thank you for doing it.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Hey, Leslie, good to see you.
Good seeing you.
What's the next event on your timeline here? You may have said it, but you're talking really fast.
No, actually, I didn't. I was trying to go fast because you got big stuff coming up next. But my next thing is to meet with Dr. Hicks at UNCG to see if this is something his architectural team can draw up.
Okay.
Even if the young people there help with it, he's licensed and he could sign off on it.
Okay, so that's next.
That's
Okay.
next, yes.
Okay. That's all I have.
All right. Mr. Minna?
Well, I've known Leslie since she was a little girl. Played softball against her dad.
Yes, we beat y'all. I mean, anyways.
I don't ever remember Forest Chapel beating Friendship.
I was kidding.
I'll
We
pass
did.
by with
Friendship
that
was
one.
great. He was
I'll
great.
pass that one on, Leslie.
You coach my brother's baseball team, but go ahead.
No, you know, after working with students for 36 years in the school system, I realize the importance of giving them opportunities that I can tell you I never had.
I know, we didn't.
You know, I was 1968. I was an 8th grader at London Elementary School, and we didn't have. Now they had a gym,
Oh, yeah.
but you had to use it during the daytime, during PE. You had nothing else really, unless you wanted, which I did, play Little League Baseball up there at the old Southeastern, down that hill.
I remember.
So, you know, I'm for anything that will help children of all ages have things to help them stay occupied, keep them on the right track,
Yeah.
have positive role models,
Yes.
and be able to not have to just look everywhere to find something to do.
Right.
It'll be there staring them in the face after school or whenever.
Right.
They can just walk down the street. I mean, you know, I went to the Dodson Hotel many times and looked around, and you got Bobby Smith over there at the garage next to it. Bobby's a big sports person.
Yes, my
You know,
son's
you got a
coach.
lot of people
Yes.
that would support this, and I know many of them.
That's right.
They talk to me. And I just want to wish you the best on it.
Thank
Sure
you.
do.
Thank you, thank you.
Lady, it's great to meet you. I don't know you personally,
I've taken pictures of you when you go by in parade. That's about it.
but again, I think what you're doing is outstanding. Everybody needs a place to come, but in your comments, what I really liked the most was when you said you got donations from all over this county.
Yes.
It's great to see our county work together, come together as a community and a county as a whole.
That's right.
That's what we need more of in this county.
That's right.
People working together instead of tearing apart, and that's really great. And I wish you the best of luck in
Thank
this.
you.
I really do.
Thank you, thank you.
Yeah, I think too, like, everything starts with a little dream, a little idea, and or something that God lays on your heart that He wants to be a reality. And I think that you're open to His leading, and it shows, and that's what this is really about, because He's laid it on your heart, and you're going to do it, and you're going to see it through.
Yes.
And we can tell that, and I know that it'll happen. And we will pray with you.
Thank you.
And join you in prayer that it'll be a reality for our county. It's very much needed,
Thank you so
and it'll
much.
happen.
I believe it.
Thank you again for sharing your vision with us and what God's laid on your heart.
Thank you for having
Yep.
me. I'm sorry I've got to go, but I have classes to teach this afternoon, so I have to run. Thank you
Good to
again.
see
All
you.
right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Chairman, I have one question for Commissioner Mendenhall before you continue. Did you
Yes.
say 1968 you was in 8th grade?
You know,
That's
might
old
have
school.
been, wait a minute. I believe I misspoke on that.
I think
1968, I was actually in the 6th or 7th grade.
Okay, I thought that seemed right.
How's that?
Yeah. I was thinking more about 48 in 8th grade. Something like that.
Yeah, he's getting older by the minute.
Yeah.
All right, can we move on to the
We can
next
move on.
item so y'all
Yes,
can bail me out of
Brandon
this?
Hooker is going to present us with the Register of Deeds quarterly
Thanks,
report.
Andy.
We'll move on off of that.
Thank you, Sonia. Madam Chair, you doing it. Hey, just keep Andy quiet over here for a few minutes.
Thank you for letting me on. I'm not near the dynamic speaker. My friend is from Walnut Cove, but I'll do my best. You've got the quarterly report there in front of you, and you can see our figures. It reads more like a half-year report than a quarterly report. We had two really, really large excise taxes at the very end of the year, 2 nursing homes sold in the county for a combined price of got it right here somewhere, $26,903,000, and they sold the same day. I'm pretty sure the same people, and so that with a combined excise tax of $53,806, that was the biggest day we probably ever had one day in the office. And when you include the 2% transfer tax, the county netted about $27,441.06 from those two sales that day, which is half the excise tax, the other half goes to the state. Let me review the report. From October the 1st through December 31st, the total recording fees were $70,800.75. And the excise tax, you can see there's a lot more, $170,007.50 for total revenue for the office for the quarter of $240,808.25. We recorded 564 deeds, 510 deeds of trust, 1,000 even. I did that math 3 times to make sure it was right. 1,000 even in miscellaneous documents, 72 plats, no birth certificates. We may have 2 or 3 a year. We did 94 death certificates, 64 marriage license, administered the oath of office to 36 notaries, notarized 10 signatures, and issued 706 certified copies and 43 uncertified copies. The number of transactions for the quarter over last fiscal year was an increase of 6.48%, but you will see the revenue was 41.58% increase over last year, and that's the sale prices. Home prices have gone through the roof. And I keep getting asked when they're going to level back off, and I keep hearing people say this is the new normal. So I don't know. It kind of depends on what the Fed's going to do over the next few months. You can see the money's collected by the state there from our office, total $96,246.15, leaving us with a net revenue for the quarter of $144,562.10. I already talked about some of the things. Those excise taxes were the big ones, and it was Pretty Manor and Walnut Ridge that sold. Pretty Manor sold for over $20 million. That was, like I said, I think that's the largest day we've ever had in the office. With those 2 sales, the last working day of the year, we exceeded our entire total year projected for excise tax collections. So every sale from now on to the end of the year, or end of the fiscal year, that's over $500, all of that money goes into just adding to the treasury because we're already past budget projections for the year on the excise tax. Total net revenue for the county, or for the office for the county, was $277,789.65. That's 85% of our total revenue projections for the whole year. And we're 50% through the budget, and we've already collected 85% of the revenue for the year, projected revenue. And that's not to say we won't exceed projection anyway, which we already have, like I said, in that line item. And it's I don't know what to tell you. I don't know if it's going to continue to be this way. I don't know if it's going to go back to pre-COVID levels. I don't know. I'm hoping I can continue these positive reports for a while. I dread the day when I come saying we don't have as much money as we used to, but it may happen. I don't know. The Department of Vital Records, one thing I've been pushing and been telling all of you for a while is that we're going to start issuing out-of-county birth certificates, and the state just don't have it together. They put a death certificate portal together last year, and they said halfway through it, they were just going to integrate everything into this one portal to access records all across the state. And they're having a lot of trouble integrating that portal. And so we were told January 1st we'd have access to it, and we don't. So now it's March 1st. So I'm hoping by March 1st we'll have the ability to pull records from anywhere in the state. That's birth and death. They're going to integrate divorces and marriages in there too, probably years down the road. I don't know exactly when. They're working through a 60,000 copy request backlog at the state. They're so far behind. They're running, latest I heard was less than half staff right now in Raleigh. Only 2 or 3 people processing amendments to the records for the whole state. And right now it's gone from just a few weeks to process an amendment to over 10 months. So to put it in perspective, their office, like I said, is responsible for amending birth certificates. If you're getting ready to draw Social Security and your Social Security card, the name doesn't match what's on your birth certificate, say you had a typo on it, well, they're going to make you amend your birth certificate to match to get your benefits, and you're waiting 10 months to get the amendment processed. It's a big deal. And we've offered to help them cut through that backlog, and we just hadn't It's been a lot of miscommunication. The state's in bad shape in that area right now. But anyway, we're hoping March 1st, we're going to be able to issue those copies from anywhere in the state. And if you're born 71 forward, that's when we can access births. If you're born before 1971, you'll have to go to the county you were born in to get it. We won't have access to it. And deaths are only from August 2024, because that's when the portal started for the death system. And when we do get it, it's going to be $14 the state gets from us every time we use that portal. And then certified copies are $10, and that's per state statute. If you need an uncertified copy, you can pay the $14 plus 25 cents for the uncertified copy. If it's an out-of-county. Now, in-county birth and death record copies are just what we charge here in the county. But when we use that system, it costs us $14 every time. And if they don't find a record in Raleigh, they still get their $14. And that's why my predecessor and I never have gone to it. But when this new portal came down the pipeline, they said that it's going to be mandated by the state, that the North Carolina Department of Vital Records is mandating this. All counties have to use it. So it was coming whether or not I wanted to do it anyway. But I know it's a convenience, but at $14 and, extra in addition. But it does keep you from having to drive. But with copies you can order from websites in each county, it's even more convenient now. But anyway, this is what's coming, so we're gonna go with it. The only news in the office I really have is my assistant completed her basic register D school at the School of Government in December, and our legislative and education conference is coming up in March 27th through 29th in Raleigh. I'll be gone a couple of days then. That's all I have outside the financial.
Okay. Board members have any questions?
Appreciate your report, and I'm sure your birth certificates will go up. I was going through that, and I saw all those marriage licenses you've issued. So the birth certificate has got to go up sometime or another.
No.
We don't have a birth incentive.
We don't have a birth
That number doesn't represent births from people who live here. That represents births that actually occur in the county.
Yeah.
In the
Since we
county.
don't have a birthing center,
That's
we don't have any birth recorded here unless we're at home. And we do have a few of
That's
those
true.
every year, but
make you clear.
we don't have many, but we do record
Unless
two or
you're
three.
born at home,
we have
there's an
man-
ambulance sitting in the parking lot somewhere.
We had a man, my first year in office, a man came in from Patrick County, Virginia, who was born in Danbury, but was never issued a birth certificate. The health department never issued one. All he had was the little copy from the hospital with his footprints on it. And he was trying to use that to get his driver's license renewed. And the DMV wouldn't take it. They had to have a certified copy. He was never issued a birth certificate. It took us 2.5 years to get him one issued to the state. He had to go through the clerk's office to get it done. The court had to order it be done because he was never married, didn't have any children, never served in the armed forces, so he never had any records that his name were on except school records and things like that and Social Security, and the state won't take Social Security records. It was a mess, and his went into our new book. We didn't go back to the 60s to put it in there because it was filed for the first time in 2021.
Wow.
And anyway, so we record very little births every year. But you get us a maternity wing up here at LifeBright, and we'll be back in business.
Thank you, Brandon, we appreciate it. All right. That takes us to the discussion agenda, and the first item is the courthouse needs and expansion. Ms. Shaver?
So, go ahead up, Perry, if you want to. Yeah, so I got Perry Peterson here as well, who has been working hand in hand with us. I'm looking over the courthouse here. We've met several times, and Judge Puckett and Judge Southern are also here. We've all sat together a lot, going over some of these, come up with lots of different design plans. Perry's done a great job of putting something together that I think we pretty much ask the impossible of Perry all the time to try to find the least expensive, least disruptive, easiest route to get something done, and he's come up with a pretty good design that I think will work out. One thing that's not really super clear in there on your packet, I think, is that there are a couple of offices missing from the new design, which are Board of Elections and Veteran Services. We did look at those. They just didn't really meet the functions of the courthouse, and we could relocate these pretty easily, we think. I gave you all some information on the probation building that we currently use at the top of the hill. There, we've looked at that building as a possible site for Board of Elections and feel like it would work out great for that purpose if you all were in agreement of doing this courthouse expansion. Also, we have a space that we could put veteran services, and that pretty much makes everything within the courthouse then more of a predominant courthouse function and frees up that space we need for that. And then as far as your design, I laid a larger design in front of you to look at as well, so on your computer there for that. And then I'll let Perry kind of go over the layout and the cost and all that fun stuff of the existing and what we were going to add or would like to add. So,
Thank you.
all right.
Good afternoon, Commissioners.
Even
It's always good to come visit. And this one time, we've got something really interesting to show you. I was asked to come do a study of the courthouse, kind of what's going on with it. And we have with us today, like Shannon said, our judges, Judge Puckett and Judge Southern, and they will handle any what and why questions. They told me what and why. I said, that's good enough for me to get going. So I get to handle the how much, when, and where part of it. And usually it's the how much part is where it gets kind of sticky. But we're going to go ahead and kind of show you what we did just to share with you kind of our process. And then obviously open it up to questions about what we're trying to do. Obviously what the court is trying to do is increase the capacity because they have more caseload and things to deal with nowadays. And also have security needs that really aren't being addressed at this point. And that little thing, technology, the building's been there a long time and it needs some help. On the good note, that building's been there a long time and is a terrific building and has served the county well, so there's no need to scrap it and move on. That's a terrific thing. So that, you can report to the taxpayers, has saved the county tremendously. We've done upgrades to it over the years, things of that nature, and it just keeps going. It's just a good building. We looked at two ways of going about this. And the first one, actually, first try was if we just renovated this building, thank you, what would happen? And the first thing you would notice on those maps is there's 9 separate major activities going on in that building. That's a lot of things going on in there. Some of the things were things that were in this building, and as needs grew in this building, they kind of got pushed over there. So now it's kind of things need to happen over there, so we need to push a couple to other places to make this all work out. But in the renovation version, what we ran into, and I'm not going to spend a ton of time on it, was that to get enough room for the court to have what they needed to do the expansions of more judges' offices, more assistants, a real third courtroom, jury pool room that was large enough to really do what it needed to do, grand jury room, just a lot of things that you'll see in the final scheme or final study scheme. That to do all those things, what we had to do was basically, we ran out of room to have the sheriff's office, probation, juvenile, election, and veteran services in the building. In other words, we had to kick all them out to get enough room to put the court properly in. So if you can picture in trying to do that, we've got to go somewhere, build a new building that houses all those things. Then we have to turn around and renovate the entire courthouse to fix everything up to get it going. So when you look at the time it takes to build a new building, move everybody out, and then start renovating things, and in renovating we have to move everybody out of the spaces they're in, so you've got to have some temporary thing that you've got to spend money on temporary things. The logistics of it are just phenomenal. So the combination of this probably taking over 3 years to implement, plus the amount of expense of all these moves and all these other things going on, when you look at it, it just isn't a good option. It's just not the way to do it. And we came upon that pretty quick when we just thought about how all that would go. So the second version was, what do you do if you purely add on to the existing building? And in that version, that's when we're going to go through in a little more detail. But what you're seeing, well, let me go back a second before we do that. In the existing version, basically, you see the top level, all it would have on it is court and DA-related items. So that was that entire floor. Then down below, we had to take clerk of court that was on the top floor. We had to move it down below, which is not a good thing. So, and then we tried to keep 911 in its position because we had spent all that money moving it. So that, after all is said and done, that was all that was in the building, was basically court, DA, clerk of court. So in the add-on version, basically, the logistics that I was talking about all of a sudden get simple. Just about everybody in the building stays put where they're at and doesn't have to be displaced. So, for instance, a lot of money was spent on the floors and things throughout the building, like in the clerk of court's area, things of that nature. Don't have to touch it. Clerk of court can go through the entire construction process and period and not be impacted. So there's a lot of things that don't get impacted in this version. The other thing that's going on, though, is we have to build this addition in logistic land and then basically move the DA over to their spot. We'll go ahead. If you can see, the DA is kind of the yellow looking on the far left side. We have to move them from where they're at now to this new location. We also create the third real courtroom. So after all of that's built on this level, then we have the capability basically of renovating each one of the courtrooms by using the new courtroom plus one of the existing ones. You renovate a courtroom and then you just keep, on the two, you just basically move that twice. So you keep court running the whole time, clerk of court's fine, DA's in their new space, everything's working. So all that happens and happens with the least amount of trouble. We'll go ahead, basically on that floor, what you're seeing is clerk of court, and DA all on the top level. The other thing going on is with security. If you can picture now, you've got two courtrooms upstairs, you've got the court C downstairs. So you've got the general public flowing through the entire building. And from a security standpoint, it's kind of a nightmare. You also had folks entering from the bottom level. They had to go up the stairs or the elevator, and then they get cordoned off to come back through the front to get security check, which is kind of a mess in today's terms. So what this does, it brings all of the courtrooms up on the same level and has one area for the general public to really be in. They can also still get to the clerk of court's office very easily, but all the courtrooms. So they come in the top side on the front door and they have to go through security up there. So all that has been cleaned up where there are people in the lower level of the building, but it's not for the general public things that you would typically see everybody. We'll go down to the bottom. Oops, go the right way. Okay, now when you look at the bottom, lower level, you see the blue. That's the sheriff's office. In this version, the sheriff's office does not move. So all the renovations they've been doing all these years are all staying in place. The one thing this scheme does, by moving a couple of things out, we've got additional space for the sheriff in the scheme. So ultimately, over the next 10 whatever years, they have room to actually expand what they're doing and have some room to grow. That if we did this whole scheme with everything as tight as it can be from day one, obviously we're making a mess. Because 3 years later, they'd be saying, well, what do we do now? So that's what you're seeing, that the blue area in the building has gotten bigger. We've also taken, in this case, the probation folks. They're in the building up at the top of the hill that Shannon referred to. Some of them are up there, some are in the courthouse. We're basically bringing both of those together in the courthouse to make that less confusing, so anybody that has anything to do with probation has one place to go. So all that, and then they don't have to do this kind of communication thing. You can imagine trying to work with somebody. I'm in one office and they're up the hill and you're trying to get together on things. It's just a mess. So it'll be more efficient and everybody's all together. So you can kind of see also by the way these things are that everything's gotten very organized all of a sudden and very simply organized. Juvenile services is the green portion, again, all together in one spot. So basically, right now in the building, they're in kind of two different spots, so it becomes very confusing for folks to use it. Then the other purple, as you go around on the lower level, is where some of the bigger changes are. In that case, we have basically a real grand jury room that's a suite that has a bathroom and has the proper size for the grand jury. They would also be able to enter basically through the lower level entrance and not have to deal with the general public. So they can kind of come in, get right to their room and get to work. So that's a nice layout as far as that goes. One of the newer things that you're seeing on this bottom level is an involuntary commitment court. That there's a lot more of that going on these days than probably there has been in the past. And what we're trying to do with that is physically have a place for that to happen. That's a real kind of courtroom. But also, it's also doubling as a virtual court. That the judges are going to have to tell you how all that works. I don't know, but basically, when that room is not being used for that, it also has the potential, we'll outfit it with technology to be used as a virtual courtroom. There may be something going on, I guess, with an extradition or something like that in another county where in the good old days you had to kind of drive over and do all that. I guess now it can be done virtual. So that allows us a space to do that. The other thing going on in there is the jury pool room, which is to get jurors in and have a place for them to spend their time during the day before they're either called or not called to a case, that there's a suite for them that has bathrooms and amenities to it. So basically when the general public's called in to give jury duty, it's not going to be a horrible experience for them. So right now it's just a tiny space and big enough and just doesn't work. So down there, all that's happened. To do these things, essentially what we're looking at size-wise is about a 9,000 square foot per floor addition. So the current building was at 24,000 something, so it's a pretty significant add to what's there. Now, where does it go? It goes, if you're kind of right at the front door, it kind of goes down the hill and then works its way towards social services. And I've got some real fun things to deal with, like stone, rock, but it appears to be not in the most horrible place, but there is enough room to do it. There's kind of a drainage feature. There's lots of good things going on there. But we have enough room to do that. We have to cut off the current little connector road that connects the two parking lots. But actually, it's a good thing to cut off that road because we want the general public on the top side. We don't want them on that back lower side. So basically, staff and folks that know they're coming to work at the building know to come in the other entrance and come to that parking lot. So it's giving us a clear definition of where the public should be. So some folks will have to get used to that, but it does that. Everything's still accessible, so as far as the use of land goes, we've got kind of more buildings tighter together, but we're not having to go do other things elsewhere. And with the investment that was made in the jail, you really do need the courthouse connected to that. So this allows that to keep happening. In cost land, right now, we've got everything going crazy, up 10, 15, 20%, other things going up 30 and 40. So I'm going to, put the big asterisk by this, saying usually we try to be very confident and tell you exactly what we think it's going to cost. Not today. That we gave kind of a range. What I projected, though, was, if you can kind of picture this, the addition would be roughly about $4.5 million to do the addition. Site work, depending on how far we go with that, at least $500,000 on that. Renovation, I'm allowing $1 million, which gets all that technology in there, that all those things are very expensive. So we're trying to allow for those. And and then fees and things of that nature. When you add all that up, that comes to about $6.5 million. So in my range, I said I thought the project would come in somewhere between $6 million and $7.5 million to do everything we're talking about doing. I'm hoping that when it does come time to get pricing and things, we've got a better situation than we have now, and we go kind of in the downward direction, but I can't project that, so I'm not going to say it's something that will absolutely happen. That if you were a betting person, you probably bet on the upper end right now. But that's kind of given current construction costs, what we're running into, just to give you a sense of what that is. So with all that, we're kind of at study stage, so all this is conceptual. I mean, this diagram is a diagram, it's not a building, that there's so many more things that have to happen to really make it into a building. But this is a direction, and a direction that I can honestly say when Stuart Easter, Shannon, and Glenda saw it, said, golly, this makes sense, and they saw me excited about it, and I don't get excited about much. And then we said, okay, now we're going to try it out with the judges taking a look and the DA taking a look, and it was pretty much the same thing that they said, golly, this actually makes sense and actually solves more things than we thought we could. So we're all very excited about presenting you something that we feel like would actually work and be a great thing for the county. So with that, I will open it up to any questions you may have at this point in time.
Okay. Go ahead.
Hey, Perry, good to see you again. I appreciate you putting this together. I remember when we first started looking at this, walking around there, I was sitting there scratching my head about this some too. So it looks like you guys really come up with something that works. About the only question I have right now at this time, that might be a question for the judges as well. I've been up here on court day before, and it's crazy. I mean, just while we're doing this, do we need to look at maybe doing any kind of additional parking anywhere?
We will have parking mainly because we're trying to move like social services and moving all the county vehicles up to the top of the hill. Mm-hmm. Part of that site work is to add parking up there.
Okay.
We're hoping is the combination of the general public kind of not being at the lower lot and more on the upper lot will improve that situation. The lower lot's always jam-packed full.
Right. Okay. Thank you. That's all.
Okay. And when myself and Amber and Shannon went up and looked at the probation building today before our meeting just to see what kind of space was up there, what might need to be done up there. It's probably not part of this figure you just gave us, but
correct.
But there would probably need to be some renovation to that building to move Board of Elections up there and maybe some additional parking up there as well.
It needs it. When we did the facility study, it didn't get very high marks.
Yeah, I think the building itself is good shape,
building's
but
fine.
Pretty good on the building, you just
The
said
inside was,
yeah, it's chopped up in there, kind of a lot of buildings, a lot of extra walls, the floors need to be replaced, but the building structure itself is
Yeah,
good.
yeah, it's pretty sound, and I think we might want to look at some extra security up there as well, as far as alarm systems and cameras and things as well. I had a question about while I'm talking, on this new plan for the lower level. It looks to me like there's still a pretty big lobby area, and it seems to me that lobby is a lot of wasted space in the existing building down there now. I mean, I get it for what it is now, but if it's going to be structured to utilize, would you not want to take some of that lobby space and maybe?
we can look at it with the number of things going on. There's kind of 5 major things going on in kind of one place. And in that sense, when you're not in those spaces, you're somewhere else. So we've kind of created a spot for you to actually be in those places. So that's why it's like that. I mean, can it be smaller? Sure.
Well, I just was thinking, and while you're doing it, it might be good to, I don't think you need it as big as it is if you're going to have this other new building. And I don't know if it has a lobby or not. I didn't bring my readers, but it looks like it.
If it's not colored, it's probably lobby space.
That's what I was thinking. That's just a thought, just looking at it, that space might be utilized as well.
Yeah, part of the thing on adding on to a building like this, kind of what you do upstairs has to transfer downstairs. So that's where sometimes in the translation, you have a little extra space. In this case, upstairs is the one that's packed full.
Right.
Downstairs, the logistics of what's going on kind of creates some of those spaces.
Well, and I guess it could be used later if things needed to be expanded as well. So, got that option. Okay, any other questions? Go ahead.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Harry, is this with a project like this, would USDA fund it like they did our jail expansion? Does anybody know that answer in the room?
Joey and I talked about that a little bit today. He's asking if USDA would possibly fund this like our jail expansion.
We'd have to
Contact him. We looked at some of the jail expansion paperwork today, just to kind of look at the interest rate we had back then and the finance and all that, trying to get an idea on that, but we'd have to contact them to see. We just didn't want to move much further and with anything until we kind of got a general feel for what you all were wanting to do.
I don't know if you want to mention the money available too.
Yeah, the $2 million is
Yeah.
also available from our courthouse for the state grant also is going to be available to us. That's a nice amount of money too.
Yeah, I would think USDA, if they fund jail expansions, they would also do court things too, but like I said, we need to verify that. Let me ask a couple other questions, then one for the judges. The renovations in courtroom A and B, did you say they were technology only, or you'd be doing some other things in there too?
We're actually making it a pretty place to be in.
That was really
right
my
now
question.
It's kind of
A little prettier wouldn't hurt.
Dreadful would be how I describe it.
Uh-huh.
That's being nice.
If
Yeah,
it
we're going to lighten it up and actually make it a place you want to be.
wasn't so dark and dreary,
Yeah.
that'd be kind of nice, so.
Lighting too will all be, obviously change out to LED and that brightens the space up immediately.
Okay.
But dark brick walls on the interior of the building are just awful.
Okay, and then the whole courthouse will have the latest technology that's needed for remote things and all that, right?
And we also will be looking at also the building automation on the HVAC side, that the old pneumatic controls that are basically ancient are still what run the building. So we'll look at upgrading those too, things like that. But those are all kind of in the more down the road, detail-y kind of place for us
Okay,
right
good.
now.
Yeah, I may have missed it too. How much does it cost to do what we would have to do up on the hill to move the folks up on the elections up there? Have y'all looked at that already?
All we looked at so far is what Perry found in the building study, which was the building sound just needs some update. It needs new floors for sure.
Okay.
I think it needs some rearranging in there as far as removing some walls, things like that, some of which our staff here would be capable of doing as far as doing maybe those wall removals, expanding the space there a little bit. It's about the same space he has down there now, but a little better laid out.
Okay.
If you kind of
Board of
picture
Elections okay
a
with
whole
that?
slew of mobile temporary buildings being lined up in the parking lot to get folks out to do renovations, things like that would have to happen.
Yeah.
That if you did kind of a little piece at a time, that 3-year would go to 5 years. And you just, and the way I describe it is, while we're under construction, everybody's inconvenienced. It's the most horrible thing you can go through. So anytime we make the duration of it less, you're going to be happier in the county.
Yeah, I agree with your approach and strategy that you briefed.
Jason was going to speak with the Board of Elections a little bit on that too. As far as Jason himself, he's fine as long as he has a space.
Okay.
Consider what we're doing with the building with locking down the bottom level. It's going to really be easier for those folks visiting Board of Elections to go straight up the hill, park directly in front of the building, go inside, it's handicap accessible. It'll actually make more sense than them having to go to the top of the building, go through all that procedure just to get down to
Yeah,
the Board of
okay.
Elections.
What about the Veterans Office? Do you look where you'd put it
I talked
already?
to Larry, and we think Larry would be comfortable upstairs in one of these vacant spaces that we could clean out a room for him up there, of course, but he would rather have an office with a window if he could help that for his veterans. And he doesn't really need that waiting area that he's got down there now, so it would just give him an office space. So he would be comfortable here, I think, in one of those rooms.
Okay.
Those are the only two that we'd really be displacing.
Okay, and then my last question, maybe for the judges, is what is there data that drives the need for this, or is it driven by the fact that we have some state money available, or what's the timing?
We didn't really have that state money.
Y'all come on.
Like,
The time that we first approached the county about it, the state money wasn't available. That was a nice surprise.
Oh, okay.
It comes from, as I indicated when I had met with the county before, I have been putting Band-Aids on a problem for a long time now, and I just simply can't go on doing it. I do not even have a jury assembly room as it stands right now. I have to bring the jurors in, put them in the courtroom, but when I need to do business outside the presence of the jury, I have to send all of those people basically out either into the parking lot or out into that lobby. That's not, when I have defendants who are waiting to be tried and the jurors who are going to be their jurors standing out there, that is not an ideal situation at all. And I simply don't even have one at this point, even though I think that courthouses are probably required to have one. We've operated without one for a while now. Our grand jury room is also our law library that I'm having to use now. Each courthouse is required to have a law library. There is no access to that when the grand jury is meeting, because the only place that I have had to have a grand jury meeting is to put them in there, which also does not allow for us to really spread them out like we need to spread them out in this COVID times as well. So it was an ongoing issue. We're also starting, we've been trying cases, we never really shut down. And we've been trying cases, but I'm on the verge of having to really start some very serious cases, which are going to require a larger jury pool. And that was at the point of looking at what's coming ahead that I knew I had to approach the county and say, I can't put a Band-Aid on it anymore. It's just we're at a point where we really need to make these changes. It's not fair to the citizens that we're asking to come in and serve as jurors. It's not fair to the citizens who are coming into the courthouse already with issues, and we're there to litigate those issues. And they're just not in a situation in the courthouse that I believe that would adequately meet their needs. You know, we also addressed security issues there. I think that the plans that have come up with, I was surprised that you were able to meet all of those needs altogether, and I think it will meet the security issues as well as just function. And I think it will lead us and put us in a position so that I'm not coming back to you in 5-10 years saying, hey, we've got another problem. It's something going forward that I think that will serve the citizens in the county well for many years to come. So that's kind of where it came from.
So you kind of endorsed the plan that was briefed to us today? Then,
I do, absolutely.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely.
Also, one other question. It seemed like when I was county manager, we talked about this or whatever, but whenever you guys reach the point where you have really good justification to do this, which it sounds like you do and everything, it's not like really we don't have a lot of options, do we?
You're asking if I could order you to do it.
Yeah, exactly.
You're right.
That's what I kind of thought.
I do not want to approach it that way. Yes. But I thought we would come in. One of the things, you know, when I met with Shannon was, we've always worked great with the county commissioners, and I in no way would want to approach it that way. So I approached it in a way of, this is what we need. I know the county's always been very kind and worked with us on what we need, and they have been wonderful so far in working with us. And that's the way I would rather approach it.
You answered my question. I understand the process. If I'm not mistaken, we were ordered to build a jail one time, right, by a Superior Court judge, I
There
think.
have been instances throughout the state.
Not before
in
your
which-
time.
Yes,
Yeah.
in which Superior Court judges have ordered the county to provide what was necessary.
Okay.
That's correct.
I appreciate your approach to this.
Yes, sir.
Makes sense to me.
Thanks for all your hard work involved in this. And I've always thought that as far as security as our courthouse is pitiful. You go to Forsyth County, you go in 2 doors and that's it. That's the only place you're going. Is the doors down at the bottom locked yet?
Not yet.
Get close.
Close, yeah, we're good.
Well,
They're putting the things.
that's something I've always thought. Even though you got a guy up here that scans this guy, comes in the courthouse, you let a guy come down through the bottom, come up through with a gun. Well, he's already up there by that time. You know, you're not going to stop him.
And it's a little bit worse than that, actually, because the way that we've had security run is security operates when court's in session. And once court is over with, it could be at noon, it could be at 5 o'clock, it could be at 10:30 in the morning. Security shuts down, they go home for the day. And there's nothing stopping somebody from coming in the front doors and planting a gun in the bathroom and then coming back the next day when court's in session again, retrieving that gun. But more importantly, the amount of money that flows through that clerk's office is probably more than what goes through most of the banks in Stokes County on a daily basis too. So I mean, obviously that may or may not be known by the public, but that's a fact. And we have a considerable amount of money that flows through that courthouse. And if someone had a dastardly design, they could easily take advantage of that, given the security in place. But we're encouraged by the security that we have coming, and we're very excited about locking those doors on the lower level, and this beefed up security on the main level for everybody to come through. I think is going to be a real benefit for all of us, and we really appreciate that.
And I do want to say, I know that the county commissioners have already acted on getting us someone there to man that front door all the time, and we appreciate that, and that was already been acted on, so that we're not necessarily, hopefully, looking at any of those security issues.
And another thing, if we move forward on this project, something I'd like to see as far as the judges go. Our judges get out of their car right here in the parking lot where everybody's at, you know, and with the people you deal with today, anything's possible.
Well,
And, you know,
we do now have a secure area that we
We
will.
parked at the
Okay.
Sally Port back behind the jail now, and so.
That's where I was going. I didn't know y'all had moved
Yeah.
over there.
We
Yeah.
moved back there, and that really is a big benefit for us, and especially when we have visiting judges who are not familiar with our courthouse, having them and a bailiff there to meet them and escort them in is a big
good.
plus for us.
Okay.
Good, that's good to hear.
One last question.
All right.
Do you have a time frame you want this done by?
As fast as possible.
The sooner the better. You know, to Judge Puckett's point about, especially with jurors who have been asked to wait in the parking lot to be called in for service, that's a black eye for all of us, and we owe it to them when we call them in for service to be able to have a place for them to go. I did want to answer too about the technology courtroom on that lower level. I think that's a real benefit for us. The administrative office of the courts has a technology that they've purchased for one per county statewide as part of some of their COVID relief funds. So that'll be coming our way. It's not ready to roll out quite yet, but I think that would be an ideal place to put that technology once it's available. And that really is a virtual courtroom where you can have these hearings. We see it pretty regularly now where we have juveniles who are being housed in facilities around the state, and we use WebEx to have them present in our courtrooms. But if we were able to have a dedicated court space to put that technology once it is rolled out to us, I think that would be an ideal place for that to go.
While we've got you here, I'm going to ask you this question. What is the, I don't know much about the subject, so I'm just going to ask it, but what is the whole, or what would be the thing standing in our way, especially once we got this set up? Would it make, if we wanted to ever, or y'all wanted to ever do a drug court, like a dedicated drug court? I guess that's just on a certain day. But that would make this more feasible, I would think, to have something like that if you chose to.
All of each courtroom, the more courtrooms that we have available, the more court can be utilized. You know, right now, we rarely use the downstairs courtroom because it's not a real courtroom. It's not really safe, and it's just not conducive to having court. So that leaves us with two real, what we consider real courtrooms. And that means that's all we can ever run at one time. The more courts that we have, courtroom space that we have available, then that would lead us open to having different kinds of courts at different times, whether it's, you know, civil and superior and criminal district, or however that may fall out. But each courtroom allows us to have a different type of court.
Right. So it might be more feasible in the future having an extra courtroom if you decided to do it.
I think just long term, I think it's going to have to be.
Yeah, I don't know sometimes we can just sit down and talk about that because I don't know all the ins and outs of it. But given that we're working with VIA to bring some things to our county with the opioid relief and the money and stuff, it's kind of an interest to see if that's something that would help our county in the future to do.
Is kind of a very nebulous concept too. I'll say that it varies everywhere you go. So it's really up to the county as far as what the county wants to fund it to be. So when we say drug treatment court, it really has a different meaning depending on where you are in the state. There's not a state down approach like there had been previously in the past. Forsyth County had one, the state did away with the funding, and Forsyth County has chosen to fund it themselves. And so that they've kind of kept it going to some extent, but it's not it just varies. So it could be, but like as Judge Puckett said, the more courtroom space, the more opportunities you can have for how you want to use that space. For instance, on the lower level too, you'll see in the juvenile services area, it is kind of lumped together, but that's also housing our child custody mediation, our guardian ad litem program, kind of all those that are centered around juvenile court to some extent. Our child custody mediator right now uses courtroom C more regularly because that gives her the space to spread out and have in-person mediations when they need to take place. And I think
the additions to these spaces on the lower level will allow for her to continue to use that space as opposed to actually using a courtroom for that to be used for the mediations when they are done in person.
That makes sense. Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a couple of questions just for Angie and Bill, and then a couple for Perry. Y'all made the walkthrough with our group, and you feel very comfortable. I get a strong feeling you feel comfortable with the design that has been made.
Yes, sir.
First thing I always thought about was security, and you've addressed that.
Yes.
But you feel like this will bring us up to having a very strong, secure system.
Right. The only thing that I would recommend is I understand one person has been approved now to work that front door. I would recommend that there be at least two. That would be my recommendation. Just simply, you don't know what the situation may hold. And also if one person were sick or, and called in that morning, or there's always at least one person that would be available. So that would be my recommendation as far as security, is that there be at least one more, for a total of two that would be available.
I think that's very important to me in
Yes.
today's society.
Absolutely.
And so I think that's something that we need to address in our upcoming budget to take care of that. That's my own personal opinion. I'm not speaking for all 5 board members. That's just me. And also, as we go through this, you're telling me what I'm hearing is from this design that has been given to you, other than maybe, and that would be personnel adding another person, but you really don't see anything that you'd like to have changed. You feel good with the way it looks.
I'm very comfortable with that, assuming that the money is in there and we can renovate the existing, as Commissioner Morris was pointing out, it needs some updating. That's an understatement. So as long as we are updating and adding technology to the existing courtrooms and not just, leaving them as is, I think that this plan will take us into the future, and we will not be in a situation where we're having to come back to you in any time in the foreseeable future.
Okay. And Perry, I want to make sure, you said 6.5 million on that, not counting what we got to do up here, but 6.5 million.
He
And that's
said
enough.
6 to 7.5.
Keep going. You got your range.
You see how I tried to bring it on?
I see that, but
You've done that before, too.
Thank you, Perry. I appreciate that. And the other thing, I guess, is let's say the commissioners move forward and we approve this situation, and Judge Puckett has said they need it as quickly as possible. So to me, Rick asked about a time frame, but let's say we approve this, how long, are we saying 2 to 3 years, or how long are we talking about completion of
Done quickly, it's a 2-year event.
2
So
years?
we'd say trying to open up this time.
So if it was approved in this upcoming budget, you could get it done in 2 years?
Now, if you want to spend even more, we can push it faster.
Okay.
And there's a lot of stuff we have to do preliminary too.
Right.
Before we even get to.
Well,
the
and that's
plan.
why I said, once we got to that point and everything's on go, if it, as we move forward, from that point forward, that's what I was asking Perry. We're talking about 2 to 3 years.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have. Thank you. So you got some? I'm good.
all right.
If you go USDA, you still will have to get a loan.
Right.
USDA you'll have to get the loan to pay for the bills, and then USDA pays you. Sorry,
That's fine.
That's okay, Julie.
Commissioner Morris, go ahead.
Yeah, one of the questions, does any aspect of expanding what you're doing there generate any additional revenue or any revenue for us? I don't think it does,
I wish
but
I could tell you it did.
I'll ask.
Do board members have any more questions? Well, I'm going to bring this up now, since we have the judges here with us, because we will have a primary election coming up. And so if we have that bottom door locked, so anybody that comes to early vote's going to have to come through the security upstairs.
Yep, they'll have to go through the courthouse security to get down. Anybody that comes in that building's gonna have to go through that security.
Right.
Into that building for any purpose, whatever they're coming for.
So I was going to
If they're
say,
coming to vote and they are handicapped.
They'll come in the door and go the elevator down
Okay.
stairs.
Just want to make sure we covered
Yeah,
that.
yeah, they can get down there, they just have to go through the security first. Probably in the next couple of weeks, those doors are gonna be locked. They're putting all that system on there this week, so should be soon.
there's no way around that. Just, if it was like a one-day event, maybe you could have security down there, but I don't see.
Yeah, but
It's
once,
just-
once we pretty much implement that, everybody has to.
Shut it down,
At the top,
yeah.
We just have to lock that bottom.
Yeah, that's what I'm just going
That's
through
why I
my
say I
head,
think-
to think if there's any other way around it, but I
Moving
don't.
forward, the years to come, Board of Elections would like that other location simply because they would be out of that building.
It would be more convenient for the voting.
And we've had to, coordinate court schedules with the Board of Elections because they use courtroom C for voting. Because you don't want to have voting out in that lobby area that you were referencing earlier. You want
Right.
to give people privacy.
Right.
So we have to make sure we're not having court in that courtroom C when early voting is going on or when the Board of Elections
Right.
needs to use it. There's been other times where Board of Elections and the Sheriff's Office needs to use it for training purposes or other types of committee meetings that they need it for. So.
Okay, I wasn't even aware they used it for early voting.
And I'll say too, thank you for letting us use your commissioners' chambers for magistrates court. We've had to do that a few times too. So we're grateful to have that and send people over here so that we can use all three courtrooms in the courthouse.
Is there a magistrate's office in the courthouse building now?
The magistrate's office is actually in the new jail.
Oh, okay. All right. I wasn't aware of that. Okay.
Perry, I wasn't aiming to put you on the spot, dropping that down to 6.5 either. You know I would never do that to you.
All right. Well, I think we've got a lot to study over and look at, and I think it's time to act on it myself and get the ball rolling, especially hearing what kind of timeline we're looking at. So I appreciate y'all coming today and sharing everything with us.
Thank y'all.
It's a 40-year-old courthouse, and we look forward to using it for another 40 years. So we
Right.
appreciate y'all helping us with it.
No problem. Thank y'all. Okay. So the next item is the tax office agenda. Thank you, guys.
Do you wanna just leave that back on discussion? Do you wanna talk about it more at the next meeting, or?
What would be the pleasure of the board? Do you want to?
Really anything we can do on it? Do y'all get more stuff together or?
I mean, what else would you like to see as far as that before you make any kind of decision moving forward? Approximate cost on remodeling the probation building and the Board of Elections? Are there other things that you need to know more about?
Yeah, that one thing we would, yeah.
Yeah. Anything else that would help you?
That would probably be one thing we would need, but, I mean, we could bring it back on for discussion at the next meeting. And if there's any other information you could,
We can
Get
get
us,
an
I mean, we
approximate
would-
cost on that, and then if you think of anything else you'd like to know prior to the next meeting, plus that gives public a little time to hear you talk about it today, maybe if they have any questions to come for the next meeting too as well, to address any concerns there.
well, I think going into our budget planning, it's going to be crucial that we have a decision made and know which direction we want to move on it. So we have another meeting before the budget goals session, so.
All right.
I think just bring it back and we'll have a little more discussion on it at the next meeting. Thank you.
Good afternoon. How y'all doing?
Good.
Good.
First item, as always, we have the monthly tax collection status report. We've collected a little over $17.9 million through the month of December, or 72.7% of the budgeted amount. And that figure has considerably gone up in the first week of January when Duke Energy paid. So next month, when I report January, we'll be up in the upper 90s. The next item I have is the quarterly Discovery and Garnishment report. We've discovered 170 accounts for $725,930 worth of value and $9,800 in taxes. We've also done 294 garnishments that had a levy of $72,934.86. The next item that I've got is the EMS billing and collections report. There's one figure that I want to draw to your attention that looks like it may be a mistake, but it's not. It's in the December 21, the other contractual write-off, and it's a negative figure. And normally you don't see that, but what that is, it's a bankruptcy revision back when Pioneer was managing the hospital. And they had give us some money back and credit us some money there. So that's the reason for that negative figure. The next item is the real and personal releases less than 100. We have 4 accounts that total $95.07. And then the refunds less than 100, we have 1 account for $13.84. And then we have on the real and personal releases more than 100, 1 account that totals $2,141.96. And then the final one, we have refunds more than 100, it's 5 accounts for $1,054.31. And then the final item I have is the 2022 Board of Equalization and Review dates, requesting 2 dates there. I've already spoken to Amber, and she said that those dates are good for the board, that y'all don't have any meetings scheduled. And I just want to draw to your attention that Monday, April the 4th is the earliest that we can do the meeting by statute. And I feel confident that with the number of appeals that we're anticipating having, we can do those in 2 dates. That's all I have.
All right, go ahead.
Hey, Richard, how you doing?
Good.
A couple of questions real quick. On the garnishment thing, it says total amount collected during the fiscal year. It's got that 412 number for the number of accounts.
Yes.
Is that people or is that transactions?
That's going to be accounts. It could be that an individual has multiple accounts.
Is that like a normal amount? I was just concerned about how many people are getting their stuff garnished. And
let me go back. I did print.
That's kind of normal for what you would expect there.
Last year, we were at 404 last year.
You were? Okay.
Yeah. And we're 400 and...
There's no major change or anything?
No, those stay pretty consistent. Sometimes, one account can make a big difference in money if you do a big discovery or something like that, or a big garnishment.
Yeah.
But it's kind of typical.
Okay. The other question I have on the next page, it's your running total up to this year is $2,095,000 for charged on the EMS billings. And collected $1,095,000. Are the next 2 columns both written off or just the one on the right, or right?
Both of them are, and we can't do anything about it. But like I said, that one column at the bottom, that's not a typo. That's just where the bankruptcy revision for Pioneer.
So those right 2 columns are required write-offs then?
Correct, absolutely.
Okay. So we collect about half of it then?
Yeah, and those are, I can look back at last year's because I just brought it for comparison. Last year we had charged out 1.1 million and we'd only collected 600,000. So
okay.
It's kind of tough.
That's all I have, Madam Chairman.
All right. Any other questions? Okay, well, thank you so much for the report.
You're welcome. And I just want to ask you if we could move the releases and refunds more than 100 and the equalization review date request to the consent agenda for February the 14th.
All right, we'll do it.
We need to agree to those dates today, too, that he briefed.
Yeah, probably be a good idea. Tell me the dates again.
April the 4th and April the 18th. The first one was at 6 and on the 4th, and the Monday the 18th was at 2 p.m.
First and third Monday.
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Third Monday's on Easter Monday.
Easter Monday.
Which one is?
The 18th.
That's Easter Monday.
And we can change anything, it's fine.
You do it because it's tax day? You do it on purpose?
To be honest with you, I just wanted to get it off my plate.
You want to change that 18th date to another day?
It don't matter to me. off work that day. It's
Tuesday, the
whatever, y'all.
19th. Is that, when's Easter, actually?
Easter's that Sunday, 17th.
I'd really like to move it off to a Tuesday or something.
All right.
Easter Monday, I don't.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's do Tuesday, the 19th. Is that a meeting that we for sure will have, or we'll just have to see if we need it?
We will have to have it.
We'll have to have it.
advertise
Have to
that.
have two, at least two. Okay.
What time is your one on the 19th?
2,
Is 2 o'clock still okay for that one?
yeah.
Both meetings.
We could have one, but
First one
we
to be
usually
is-
try to have two to accommodate folks if we
I gotcha.
scheduling conflicts and things like that.
April 4th, 6th, and then April 19th.
April the 4th and the 19th. Okay, we'll have that on the consent agenda at the next meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Richard.
All right, and the next item is the Broadband Committee discussion. And Amber sent us a link. I hope everybody had a chance to read it, talking about the makeup of the committee. I reached out to Karen Barker with the school system because I thought somebody from the school system might need to be on it, and she's their technology director. And she was going to talk to Dr. Rice and Mr. Jones about making sure, which I already mentioned it to Dr. Rice as well, and he, before I even mentioned it to her, to see if he thought that was an okay idea, and he thought it was. So I'm sure should be able to hopefully serve on that. I think that list gave us some ideas to pull from. I think y'all mentioned maybe Ty being on it as a county attorney. Glenn Knox said he could advise, but he can't be a voting member. But he could advise the committee. So that being said, I don't know if you want to keep it to about a 7-member.
I like the idea of just going right down that checklist that the NCDIT provided and put those exact people on it. And maybe like have either Amber and Shannon, either one of them chair it or co-chair it or something.
Right.
Then have just start out with that group, and then if they, since we're going to work with them, I would try to go lockstep with that office down there on how we do everything with this internet stuff, and then we could set up whatever that core group is, and then they could call in subject matter experts if they needed to or whatever. But it looked to me like the right people from were what they had on the list.
I talked to Glenn today, and he said that he's hoping by the end of the week to have a really clear one-page guidance on what partnering with them looks like moving forward. They're still trying to get all the logistics of that worked out, but he's hoping to have it at the end of the week or so. So maybe by the next time, maybe we can have a little more on that too.
Would you want us to get Shannon or Amber to reach out to some of those, like the librarian is mentioned, libraries was on there, law enforcement was on there.
Emergency management,
Right. Somebody.
nonprofits. Said it'd be good to have some nonprofit, and Glenn may need to clarify that for certain organizations to give you funding. So I don't know what exactly they meant by that, like ARC. And then I really like the idea that was in their list of having citizens on it, businesses and citizens. I've got a couple people that are private citizens that call me all the time wanting to know what the status is. There's probably businesses maybe that we could advertise for them, let them do an application or something. I suppose it'd be one way you could do that. Or we just nominate people we talk to, or however y'all want to do that. What do you think, Shannon, on that?
I think if I would definitely put it out like we normally put appointments out on the website. If you wanted to put some names together today, or wait, or just put it out and at least set a time frame for a couple of weeks before your next meeting to let people apply to serve on that committee, just so everybody has a fair chance and you're not limiting it.
I just like to see people that are operating on DSL up here in the north end of the county be on it, or wherever they're at in the county if they don't have internet, to get those people's input.
Yeah, I definitely would put it out there like we normally put it out there and let them have a chance to serve on it if they want to. And
And keep it a number like 7, just so you have an odd number of, you know.
7 to 9, maybe.
Need an odd number. Gotta have an odd number there.
You could 7 to 9 on that number, depending on how much interest you get in it. To see.
And as I look down the list that was mentioned earlier, that y'all sent out, thank you, Amber, for that. Is that a automatic that no commissioners are on the committee?
It says local government, so I don't know what Ty thinks on that. Is that, I don't think that's limiting it. It says local government, so that could possibly be commissioners or local government staff. So I would.
I prefer not to have, I would prefer not to have commissioners on it myself, but because we're going to be making the decisions based on recommendations from the committee, so.
And the committee's going to bring the recommendations to you based on what when they start diving into those RFPs received.
Right. I don't have a problem with there not being any on there as long, I mean, I think y'all can be on there and probably in a non-voting capacity, but to steer the meeting or to chair it or whatever, I don't know what the right word is that I'm looking for there, but you got to have guidance in the, you know, the framework of it, but you wouldn't be there in a voting
I spoke to Ty about
capacity.
that earlier about that, just because I've helped a lot with creating the RFP and putting that out of, would that be any kind of, you know, inappropriate for me to do that? So we'll look into that a little further too and just get it. When Glenn has all those guidelines, it'll be a little helpful too, just to see. But for now, we could go ahead and post it out there that we're accepting applications for this broadband committee. And we can put a deadline of up until your next meeting and see what you get, or you can put it out longer. I'd say your next meeting, it's not until February the 14th. The Friday prior to that, that gives time. You don't want to push it out too far because you want to start looking at those RFPs and start getting.
You could even actually, you could get the core committee meeting and fill in those people that a follow-on meeting.
Yeah.
Or something, even if you need to. It doesn't have to all come together exactly at the same time.
Yeah. If we posted it tomorrow and posted it through the 11th for accepting applications for this committee and just to see what kind of feedback you get.
So should we say, this is just, that part is for the business people, or that we're looking for business people,
I was
or?
going to say your description on that's very important.
Yeah.
Because you don't really come to a conclusion of how you want to word it. You may have, 100 people apply that would not be really applicable to what that says.
Right.
Talking about, as you said, businesses and citizens of the county. I try to narrow and specify as much as I can, who we're looking for, and then go and say, you got to February 11th to apply for this.
Right.
And then the commissioners will look at it on the 14th.
And I think you all could, even if we brought some names back to you, had names in mind, if you have people you were thinking of within public safety or healthcare or the utilities broadband providers, you could probably come up with some names on that, and we could just specifically look for private citizens, business members, things like that on our process as far as what we're going to put online. So.
For instance, the lady that calls me fairly frequently is a grandmother who's raising a grandchild and has gone through the whole school process of virtual learning. That's the kind of person I was thinking could probably add some real value to the discussion. And then, like, just any kind of business would be good, I think, that needs internet and doesn't have it. Then we have to have providers, too, so probably Glenn and them should tell you how to go about recruiting providers.
Yeah, talk to him about that one, because I'm not sure
But
as
if
far
you're,
as that
if you
goes.
specifically, like where it
You're
says
looking at the RFPs, and you have one of the providers on the committee, that doesn't seem like that would be.
Right.
That would work.
And the education part, like if we think that the technology director for the school is interested, we could go ahead and have her name in mind and, put that back on the list as well.
Yeah, and, maybe somebody from IT here, I don't know if the.
Yeah, that's on their list, IT director.
I spoke to David and Diana, and they were either one willing to
Yeah.
do that, or maybe do it as alternates for each other, depending on, so they were willing to do that too. So we'd really just be looking for, and if you had economic development on there, you could also have like Will Carter there. If you were interested in just putting it out there, and we could word it so that like we can make sure we're getting the applicants for it. So
You want to send out to us the description before you post it?
Yeah, yeah, we can come up with something and then we can send it out to you all to look at and maybe hopefully get it posted by tomorrow or Wednesday at the latest.
Okay.
And one last thing too, Shannon, it says this nonprofit thing, but the county is treated as a nonprofit, I think, so you may not have to have a separate nonprofit.
Yeah, yeah.
Because I think to get ARC grants and stuff, since the
Yeah, but there's a
county's-
lot of good nonprofits. There may be somebody else interested too that would be good.
Yeah, if there
Might
makes
could get
sense.
Cindy Tuttle or somebody like from Stokes
Oh, yeah,
Partnership.
yeah. That'd be
Um,
good.
Lots of those.
Could ask her. She's usually willing to serve on things, and she's dealt with all areas of the county with Stokes Partnership.
And Glenn's
Big
gonna
good
be
one.
able to, like I said, serve in an advisory position because you're definitely gonna want him there for the logistics of that RFP to all the technical parts of it. So,
It says on that website they have a technical advisory group. I guess that's him and a couple other people maybe too. So George Collier and company.
So at the next meeting, we should have a list of people, and I agree, try to follow the guidelines as they recommend and put that
They've got the
together.
money, so if we do what they like, then
George is actually putting that list together Glenn was talking about today, so we've met with him.
I don't know if Joey has somebody from law enforcement or probation or somebody from,
One from law enforcement.
yeah, and Ian Tedder from King Police might be willing, but he's not as familiar with what the broadband issues are on the northern end of the county as somebody maybe from Joey's office would be.
Right.
I don't know.
And I don't think you need over 9 at the most.
Yeah.
7 or 9.
I agree. Okay.
Depending on how much of a response you get.
Yeah.
See what you get. So
All right.
if you all think of some too, we'll get you some wording and we'll put it out.
I sent you the email with Karen Barker's contact information, so you've got that.
Great, okay.
All right. So we'll have that, all right, for next meeting. Okay, so the next item is the action, and it's the finance director contract. Any questions, or we need a motion?
Motion to approve. Contract as presented to us on our agenda.
All right,
Second.
all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right, all in favor? Aye. All right, we're adjourned. Closed session.
Packing up my stuff.